This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, we've packed a number of shows together to give you some highlights. I know you're going to enjoy the show. Thank you for being with us today. Good morning, Richard, and welcome to the show. Honored to have you on. I've heard nothing but amazing things over many years now. Give the listeners a little bit, obviously, about yourself in case they haven't heard of you before and what the Family Office Club and some of the things you've done. You've written so many books around this topic as well. I'm looking forward to getting into that.
Yeah, sure. I'll give the real short version if anyone cares to know more. I'm happy to answer questions. So 2007, I started this investment club. It's called the Family Office Club. And the family office is an ultra wealthy solution to managing their balance sheet and their portfolio, by the way. So family office club's a community. We have people on one side, 1,000 members who pay for charter membership that are raising capital. And on the other side, we have 3,000 plus private investors who come to our live events and are always texting, emailing, calling me to get deals done. We have helped set up over 100 family offices for ultra wealthy families who work with everything from billionaires. We just signed a $300 million JV term sheet with a billionaire 4 days ago. We work with the shark from Shark Tank. We just closed our second deal with them 2 Fridays ago. We also work with high net worth investors who are worth 2 million, 5 million, 10 million net worth, et cetera. But over the last 14 years, written 13 books. We've hosted 150 conferences ourselves and have spoken to a couple hundred more in about 15 countries. And we just have found the more that we give on the niche of family offices, the more that we get back. Just like their podcasts, how that math goes. So we're just trying to be as helpful as possible. And long term, if we do business together, great. If not, then we're happy to help you.
That's awesome, Richard. I mean, you have just a wealth of information and knowledge, experience in this industry. Many people have never heard of that and are probably wondering, like, a family office, like, what is that? I know you briefly said it, but maybe explain a little bit about who's going to have a family office. Why would they have a family office? And we'll dive into some of the pros and cons even working with a family office.
Yeah. And first off, a family office is not an office in your basement of your house. I just want to get that across super clear. One of my best friends and family members still think probably set up these businesses in people's basements or something, but that's not what it is. A family office is a ultra wealthy wealth management and investment solution. People who are worth 10, 20, 30 million, and even more often when you're worth 50 or 100 million plus. And there's three types of family offices that makes them easier to understand. There are virtual family offices, which are very lean single family offices, very lean family offices made for one person typically. You maybe one full-time person or half-time person, everything else is outsourced. You keep it very lean and focused. A single family office, typically when you get to 30 to 50 million net worth or much more, all the way up to several $billion in net worth. And again, it's a team made just for you. You made your money in manufacturing, and maybe you just want to invest proactively in manufacturing, cash flow in real estate, a little bit of real estate development, and then hire a private bank or multifamily office, wealth management group to manage your publicly traded assets. If that's not where you create your wealth, for example. The single family office might have 3 or 5 or 200 full-time employees within the single family office. And there's multifamily offices where are just wealth management firms that are geared towards people that are worth 10, 20, 30 million plus. They might have 20 clients, they might have 200, but they focus more on intergenerational planning, more on proactive tax planning, estate planning, and just manage all the chaos going around what an ultra wealthy family has to face. Last thing it's really important to mention is that most people don't know what a family office is, even if they are ultra wealthy and they should have one. So most people who are worth $100 million don't really know what a family office is yet, because it's just a term that's been used more frequently in the last decade here. So you may meet people who are wealthy enough to have a family office and they don't. It doesn't mean that they're less powerful to work with, but those are the types we're referring to when we talk about family office investors.
And so ultimately, once you create that kind of wealth within your family, right, your own net worth, you're going to have a full-time staff that's helping you manage that. That's ultimately what this family office is doing. Is that accurate?
Right. It's basically the real function of it is to be more holistic. So think about the problems you might have if you're worth $1 million. And if you miss a tax deadline, or you don't sell something at the right time, or you sell it a day too late in 2022 versus 2021, and then by the tax laws are retroactive back to January 1st or something, then that little mistake might cost you $2,400. But if you're worth $100 million, that one mistake might cost you $200,000. So you can easily make $1 million mistakes if you're worth 50 or $100 million. So the cost of every mistake is greater. You have tons of employees. One of my clients has 140 different LLCs they have to track and keep updated. One of my other clients had 7 different IRS audits going on in different states and different years at the federal level. And one of my clients has 4,000 employees. So not only are the mistakes more expensive, you're much more likely to make a mistake. So keeping in mind what your CPA told you in February or April, keeping that in mind when you meet with your wealth advisor and your insurance agent, and keeping it all straight, having to be the quarterback of everything, it's just not practical.
Hey, it's almost a different world, right? When you're worth 100 million versus a million or less, and making, like you said, a small mistake like that could easily employ lots of people to help you do it right. Right. I think it's hard to visualize or to comprehend employing, say, 200 people just in your family office. But when you have that kind of net worth, hey, a mistake could easily pay for that level of employee and number of employees.
I think that it's important to point out though, so there might be some people listening to this and they're like, oh, I'm worth 2 million or 5 million or 7 million. So I can't relate to this. The main thing that I've been taking away from this, because I started this business in a basement studio apartment that was about 300 square feet in Harvard Square. And I didn't have enough money in my bank account to pay rent that month when I started this business. So my whole motivation since then until now, and now we have 20 employees. We're doing 5 million a year in revenue and closing on deals every couple of weeks with investors. Like my motivation is to learn from these winners in the game of capitalism. And the way that they grow their wealth leaves clues for other people in growing their wealth. The way they organize their ideas, execute on strategies, and build their business platforms. The way that they focus their energy on investments which meet certain criteria that I can talk about.
Richard, you talked about it a little bit there and talking about somebody that's worth, say, 5 to 7 million, or maybe there's probably listeners who are worth 8 to 10 million or more as well. When should they consider creating their own family office? And maybe you give them a first couple steps in thinking through that.
Yeah, sure. So I think that when you start getting to between 5 and 10 million net worth, you should start thinking of at least having some of the functionality of a family office in place. Because at that point, you've gone beyond, okay, I have my home, my business has this net worth, I have some money in my IRA or stock market, and you could go beyond just buying one rental property or 2 rental properties. At that point, or a doctor or someone who's making 7 figures in profit, for example, once you get to 6 to 700,000 in consistent income, you should start thinking about it. And the reason is that you're just going to be more effective in defending yourself against big expensive mistakes. You're also going to be more effective. And so what family offices typically learn over 7 to 10 years the hard way is that you control everything. And it's usually not good to control nothing. So if your whole dream is to go sit on a beach and do absolutely nothing the rest of your life, and you just sold your fintech company yesterday to Facebook, then okay, then someone can help you design that. But typically families are entrepreneurial, first generation families. Someone used to be the CEO. They like the challenge of business, the fun of it. They don't want to stop now after all the hard work of getting to where they are. They see that as just a plateau. And so it's usually best to play offense in just 1 or 2 areas really well, have full control, and really be having to get defense by playing offense there and growing your net worth within the niche that you have distribution or exposure, et cetera. And then typically every family that I work with wants real estate, depends on their appetite for it, but usually 25%, sometimes up to 50% real estate in their portfolio as a percentage of their net worth is cash flowing, some development, and then public market exposure, which is the most passive usually, unless you made your money in public markets. And so there's those 3 levels: aggressive, full control; the moderates, I'm going to pick the food group, maybe even pick out the assets with an affiliate sponsor, real estate portfolio, and then a highly diversified public markets portfolio. So that there's different brains managing different components. And doing that is a very effective way of growing your net worth once you get to that level. And then you also want to make sure you have family office quality service providers when you get to that 5 and 10 million net worth, because they shouldn't just be a cost. It should be an investment you get an ROI out of. And your attorney should give you creative structures for your deals. Your tax planner should help you proactively plan things out, et cetera.
Makes complete sense. And I was just thinking through that the listener they're listening to this and they're thinking, okay, I'm right around 10 million, $12 million net worth. Maybe I should be considering this. This makes sense to me. Should they consider something like the multifamily office, like you're talking about? Or if not, or they say, you know what, I don't want to have the multifamily office. I don't want to be a part of that. I want to go ahead and start my own. Who should be their first hire?
Yeah, good, great question. Part of it depends on who they have within their operating businesses. If you have sold off your company and that's why you're ultra wealthy, you kind of have to start from scratch. Otherwise, some people will have their operating business and just hire a really powerful CFO within that operating business. But if a lot of their net worth is represented within that manufacturing company or consumer products company, then that CFO is effectively overlooking their offensive part of their portfolio, right? So you can beef up the team within your operating business as part of the strategy. And it's really important to have excellent CFO controller, excellent wealth advisor who understands what a virtual family office is. I'm at with over 1,000 such wealth advisors, and we just work with 3 that work with different size families. So if anyone needs a connection there, we're happy to do that. And while we used to charge a $3,000 or $4,000 a month retainer to help set up family offices, we just do it for free now. We teach this at our workshops for those people that are raising capital. But the most important thing is to add value to an investor and build that relationship. And once we've helped them put their family office together and help them define their direct investment strike zone, well, then you know exactly what to bring to them because you know what hits that strike zone. So the priorities of the family, though, are going to determine who they may need to hire most, right? So a real estate family is going to hire someone different than someone who has like a publicly traded company in a consumer product space. The most important thing is not the first person to hire. The most important thing is to identify your values, your objectives, your priorities, where you want to be in the future, and not spend any money or hire anybody or invest in anything until the mission of your family, your values and priorities and your culture, your wealth creation story. Because otherwise you're going to hire the wrong person or waste money, or someone's going to create a game plan for you that's good for them and not for you. And you'll be wasting time and money if you don't really identify what your family stands for. You won't know who to hire and fire or even where to base your family office.
What about a couple examples or ways that you've seen people add that value to a family office to start building that relationship like you're talking about?
Yeah, sure. One good example is I moved here to Scottsdale last year. And the first week I was here, I was getting my car service somewhere and I saw their business model was really unique. It was well branded and I looked on their website and they have 20 some locations. So I emailed a cold message to the founder via LinkedIn. And I said, "Oh, it looks like you're expanding quickly. I assume that you're raising capital and giving away equity every time that you open one of these locations. I have an investment structure that would protect you from dilutions. You don't have to give away any equity and you can still raise the capital you need, the equity capital you need to grow faster." And they responded the same day. I met in person with them and met in person with their board. And they've had a 100 million plus exit to a large bank recently, et cetera. So that was an example of one way. Other ways are connecting families to each other. Another way is helping them create a family office or just connect them to a service provider to see that they know. And then if you look at where family created their wealth, it's in some niche like stem cells or venture capital, et cetera, then you might think who's the most valuable person on that niche, what project are they working on? And then just don't just randomly connect people, but have it be more meaningful. Like, why would they connect? And what is the project exactly where one person would put capital in the others, or one person could employ the son of the other person to give them an internship or something like that. So hopefully that gets the wheels turning for some people.
As far as what the family offices are looking for right now, when specifically, say, investing in commercial real estate or maybe specifically multifamily, what are they? Let's say they already have the relationship with an operator. Maybe they haven't done a deal together yet, but they've already built that trust there, right? We're not worried about that at this point. However, what type of deal are they looking for? What makes it the deal for most family offices to truly consider, hey, this is going to be a great opportunity for me? Maybe it's returns or it's probably outside of returns most of the time, but what does that look like?
Yeah. For novices in business, like when you're getting your MBA or in business school or something, you're afraid someone's going to hear your strategy. You're like, oh, I'm going to keep the strategy secret or someone's going to take it. But just like your strategy of producing 1,200 podcast episodes over the last couple of years, the reality is you can say that, but no one else wants to do it. It takes a ton of execution. Like, just like me writing 13 books, like who wants to do that, right? Only a really motivated, focused person. So what people mistake is that they think it's about the investment strategy and they think someone's going to steal it. That's wrong. Some people think, oh, it's all about promising the biggest returns. That's wrong. We talked about that in the trust factor. It's a lot about the execution, but also doesn't get talked about nearly enough is the structure of the deal. I'll let you choose any deal strategy And if you allow me to structure the deal, I can make it an amazing deal for me, where I have none of the liability, all the cash flow, all the profits, and the other person would get nothing. But people don't custom negotiate structures. They don't custom set up structures. They don't think, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm a passive investor. I just have to go into whatever structure they offer me. But when I'm not passive and I'm investing my own portfolio into operating businesses, like yesterday, we had a due diligence call with a medicinal, like psychedelic mushroom company in Canada. It's kind of early on that trend, it's not like the cannabis trend. And when you're negotiating those types of private deals, you can set up a structure pretty much however you like, as long as it complies with securities laws. And people overlook that. So the savviest of investors custom structure their deals. My billionaire client that we've closed 5 or 6 deals with, my $1.2 billion REIT client, the Shark from Shark Tank I've closed 2 deals with, they all custom structure their deals. A new ultra wealthy investor, small private investor, never custom structure their deals. They don't even negotiate the fees. They just go into whatever people offer. So I think that is what investors should be looking for. And the savviest, largest ones do look for above everything else.
So they're they're going to work with that family office to ensure it's favorable for them, right? And be willing to be flexible, I guess. I think some people I've heard this, and maybe this is a myth. I just want you to kill this myth if it is a myth or not. But some people say, well, I don't want to give somebody that much control of a deal, or they're going to want too much control or too much power over the project. Or I hear that often. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, this comes up often with one of my top clients. What we do is we find the best of breed independent sponsors in private equity and real estate, and we sign $300 million JV equity term sheets. We roll out the $300 million of equity over 5 or 10 deals over 3 to 5 years with them. Well, it could be more deals than that. But what's interesting is some people are saying we'll put 97.5% equity of a deal. They only put up 2.5% as the sponsor. And if they run dry powder, then we'll help them out on that and back it out of fees or something. But what's really interesting is hearing some people say, oh, why don't we change that full control? We're like, yeah, but it's 97.5% of our money. And they're like, oh no, I'm just not comfortable. It's giving up control. And we point out, we're like, well, you didn't have control yesterday of the 300 million. And if you don't like that, then someone else is going to have the management contract and earn millions and millions of fees per year off of this agreement. So it's not like you've lost anything, right? Like, I guess if you're time constrained and it's just too annoying to deal with an extra $20 million or $50 million to manage, and you don't want that to build your infrastructure to serve smaller private investors, then okay, maybe turn away the money. But the sophisticated funds and sponsors understand there's different layers of the capital stack. And you've got institutional investors are going to want one thing, and big family offices want another. The $20 million worth deals want something else. They care about cost segregation and bonus depreciation, et cetera. And the small investors might just want passive income, a decent return that's hands off, it's easy to understand. So you wouldn't have controlled the money if you didn't get their investment done. So I just like open your brain to, okay, I'm going to put this person in this box and this is different part of our model, et cetera. And those are the people that grow this access out there.
Yeah, that's incredible. You're not going to control it at all anyway, right? If you're not willing to be somewhat flexible, again, like you're talking about, that's a great answer. So what really pushed you in the beginning to become so self-disciplined? I mean, very few people have written that many books around these topics. And so no doubt you're somebody of self-discipline. Where did that come from? How did this come about? Just the desire to be that disciplined?
Growing up, I had started 5 businesses before I got out of high school, and I'd always played a lot of sports. Genetically, I'm a pretty average American guy. I'm not like extra tall or extra something but I love competitive sports and played some in high school, college, et cetera. And so it's essentially the combination of those 2 things that I finally got going in the family office space. It was kind of combining the rigor of training for sports to the family office industry and really just training harder than some others to be more dedicated to. And I think also when you start many different businesses, and then you start one that actually works and people actually want what you have instead of refreshing and nice after like falling on your face a bunch of times. And then you appreciate it and not take it for granted. And you say, hey, I have something here. So as long as I can, I'm going to really take advantage of that and add the most value I can to this niche. And then the final thing was, Jeffrey Bidmer was one of my mentors early on, along with Evan Pagan. But Jeffrey Bidmer told me that if you add value to people who could say yes to you in a certain business niche or opportunity, and you add value to them just once a week through like a newsletter or an article or a video, et cetera, And you do that for 1 to 2 years, you'll be a local expert. And if you do that for 3 or 4 years, you'll be a regional expert. If you do that for 5 to 7 years, you'll be a global expert. When I read that, I hadn't heard of the family office industry yet, but I said to myself, well, I'm for sure going to do that. I just don't know the niche yet. I'm going to use that formula on. But I liked any formula where all it took was a whole bunch of focus and hard work, because then it de-risked it. And I knew, okay, well, I know I can do focus and hard work. So I want to control my destiny, and that gave me a formula to control it. I just needed to find the right niche. And then when I found the ultra wealthy niche of family offices, I said, oh, I can find anyone to be helpful to me on this topic. And these are the richest people on planet Earth, and nobody's talking about it really, like, so backwards, that I kind of went all in on that, and then started putting out a ton of content and got the rewards doing that.
Awesome. I can relate to that to some extent. That's incredible. What about some daily habits that you're disciplined about that have helped you achieve this level of success?
Yeah, sure. So exercising and health is definitely one. I think getting 7 hours plus of sleep, don't always succeed at that. That's been a top priority. I think most important, that's unique to share to probably both of us who are doing a lot of things every day, is that I know what my monthly goals are, my quarterly goals, my annual goals. I have a theme for every year. I have a media plan. Like, for example, one year I only consume podcasts and books from Dan Sullivan. In 2022, I'm going to be only listening to podcast episodes and reading books and white papers and articles from billionaires. If they're not a billionaire, I'll wait till 2023. And then what I do is it's also, when I read a really good book or go to a conference and hear an idea that I just know, just like that Jeffrey Gitomer formula, but if I put that in place, it would just reap huge rewards, or it's exactly what I need to do. It's most of us know what we need to do, but we don't actually do it, right? Like, you could summarize the whole diet health industry with, like, move your body around and exercise, eat clean food that's not processed, and sleep enough, right? And like, everyone knows that, but I don't know any human being that does all three of those things really well consistently, like not very many at least. So what I do is I summarize it I'll summarize the whole book in one line. And then I put all those one-liners on this one pager I have. And the one pager has my theme for the year at the top, my monthly goals, my quarterly goals, my annual goals, and then a whole bunch of one-liners, like 40 different one-liners at the bottom. And then I laminate that and I put it in my office. I travel with it. I put it where I shave every morning. And while I'm shaving every morning, I read that over, and it's like my compass. So now I'm interpreting my email inbox, everything during the day based on what my goals are and where I'm going. And that's my roadmap, or my airplane cockpit kind of control center of my rules for living and where my energy is going to flow. And that's been super critical and really helpful. Otherwise, you read a great idea, you forget to implement it, or you have a goal, but you don't know what your goal is for a couple months, or you just get off track and what you're trying to get done for the year, et cetera.
That's incredible. Could you give an example or two of a one-liner like you're talking about?
Yeah. So one of them is, what you do is more important than how hard you work. One of them from Dan Sullivan is, you're going to put the time in anyways, so you might as well enjoy life. Another one that I have is just a reminder to listen to billionaires. Another one from Brandon Burchard is, you need to take bold, massive action. Another one from Tony Robbins is that everyone's obsessed about strategy, and you go to MBA to get strategies, you go to conferences to get strategies, read books to get strategies, but the state of your mind and the story you're telling yourself is probably at this point more important than collecting more and more strategies. And so I have a reminder about that in there as well. And then you've got people who have been mentors to me. So at the bottom of the page, I have 8 headshots of the little square headshot of these people. They're kind of my board of advisors that they don't even know they're on there, but it's going to think, what would they do in this situation? Or what would they suggest if I had a conversation with them, et cetera?
I've interviewed 1,200 plus people now, and I've never heard that before. And I think it's incredible. I mean, I've heard different things similar, but not exactly like that or that detailed. How do you create something like that? Or is that just like kind of continuous work in progress?
The best part about me suggesting that to your listeners is that it costs absolutely nothing. You don't need to go to my website and sign up for some trial membership to pay me for it, right? It's just free. So I just create a Word document, plan out your year, and have your 3 to 5 or 7 annual goals. Every month, I have 5 areas of goals, or 2 to 3 actions I want to get done within those areas. Quarterly goals, I set up 5 big rocks for every quarter I want to make sure to get done. And I just have that flow down the top half of the page, and the second half, whenever you read a really great book, and I shoot myself a little email with a summary of that idea or that concept to add it to my dashboard, is what I call it. So I'm always adding it and modifying it. I take off old one-liners that aren't as valuable, tweeting more, et cetera. And I just think who's been the most inspirational. Like, who do you want to be when you grow up? Like one of my clients, he has probably, I don't know, 30 different companies and does over $1 billion a year in revenue, but he really enjoys his life. He's laughing at every meeting he goes to. He's constantly traveling. He's having a great time. He'll close these big deals. And I want to be like that when I grow up. So that's someone that I have on my one pager. And I have, like, for example, Jeffrey Gittimer, who I mentioned him earlier, Evan Pagan on there, Dan Sullivan, et cetera. So it's pretty simple. There's no real secret to it or trick. If anyone wants feedback on how to do it or whatever, then you shoot me an email at richard@famrateoffices.com. And I'm happy to give him feedback or whatever, but it's not rocket science. But what's interesting is that nobody does it. So I told this to my best friends who I know super well. They take advice from me. I take advice from them. I say this to groups of doctor investors and private investors and people at our workshops. I don't know of a single person who's done it. People often say, oh, wow, that's a really good idea. I don't know anyone who actually does it. And that's the whole thing, is like the execution is all that matters. And this is like an execution dashboard. Every day, this is not what I'm going to execute on, and almost nothing else matters.
Richard, if you had to say, hey, the one thing that's contributed to your success, what would that be?
It's integration or integrity of a lot of different things in life. So I think people think of integrity as like morally aligning your actions with that good values. But I see integrity as integrating the media you consume, the food you eat, the clothes you wear, where you live, who you work with, business model, your pricing, everything that you have in life. If you can align all of it, then it just helps each other and things go easier. It's less of a struggle. There's less friction. But if you wear sweatpants into a meeting and you only slept 1 hour to play video games all night, and you go to a really important meeting, there's going to be some friction there and it's not going to go too well. So just the more alignment, the better, I feel. And when you get your one pager done with me, you've got a special gift for you as well.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that in a big way. How do you like to give back?
The first way is I really believe that if you run a business the right way, your employees get the benefit so much from being inspired by good leadership, getting paid more than other people would pay them, because you align interests and make it so that their performance compensation really rewards them. If life are great, you just get them off your team if you're not. We have a division called investorresidences.com, where we're buying luxury homes to rent out. Investors can stay there while rent them out. And what we're trying to do is help build one house for people in other countries, like in a poor village, or for homeless kids or orphanage, et cetera. Trying to build one house for every house that we buy in that network. And that's something we got inspired to do through Jeff Hoffman, who's one of the founding investors, and Priceline.com and Booking.com. And we're also giving $100 Visa debit cards to all of our employees on Sunday this weekend. We're going to tell them to go out and find someone in the community that they want to help. They could buy Christmas presents for someone who lost their job for their kids, or they could use it for someone who's just having a hard time with their husband or wife, or they could use it for someone who's homeless and help them buy them some blankets or something. So in that way, we allow each of the employees to go out and feel like they're helping someone else and get that same good feeling of being able to help somebody else. So those are the couple things that we're most focused on, but we really try to make sure day to day that we're running the company in a way that's genuinely helpful to people who are on our podcast or at our conferences, but also to our employees. And then they pass that on to people like our customers.
Awesome. Richard, it's been an honor to get to meet you finally and have you on the show. I know the listeners and I both have learned a lot about family offices, so many details that I'm so thankful came out during the interview, but even some more personal stuff about self-discipline and obviously the dashboard one pager, which I encourage listeners to, if you missed that part, and you go back and listen to that with a special offer. So I'm just grateful for you being so transparent, willing to share and helping so many people getting into this industry and learning these things. Tell them though how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you and the Family Office Club.
Yeah, it's just 3 quick places. Somebody's here because they're raising capital. Then just go to capitalraising.com. We have a free book free there. If you're curious about family offices and you want to learn a lot about that and see one of our live events, et cetera, we have 15 live events a year. That's at familyoffices.com. And we got a whole bunch of free stuff on there. That's our whole business model, is to help people out. And then if they want to join as a member, we have a $99 trial for new members that are raising capital, and it's free for investors. And in the last place is investorclub.com. If you're a passive investor and you want to see the best of the best investments that we see out of 1,000+ deals a year, or work with us in some way as an investor, just go sign up at investorclub.com. And it's free to join. There's no annual fee. There's no fee when you invest. If we do the deal together, it's just a small profit share on the back end.
Thank you for being with us again today. I hope that you have learned a lot from the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you're telling your friends about the Real Estate Syndication Show and how they can also build wealth in real estate. You can also go to lifebridgecapital.com and start investing today.